So use extra, extra virgin olive oil. It's 100% pure, like me.
Imagine creating something so shocking that a TV network decides to bury it forever. Not just take it off the air, but pretend it never existed at all. For over 30 years, there was one episode of Married with Children that fans whispered about but could never actually see. It was filmed, it was finished, but it disappeared into thin air. Until now. What made this single episode so dangerous that even a show famous for pushing every boundary wouldn't dare air it? Why did network executives get so scared that they locked it away for decades? And what's changed in our world that finally makes it safe to watch? This is the incredible story of the lost episode that almost destroyed one of TV's most controversial shows. Back in the late 1980s, television was a very different place. Most family shows were squeaky clean and perfect. You had shows like Full House and The Cosby Show where families loved each other. Problems got solved in 30 minutes, and everyone learned a valuable lesson by the end. American TV was safe, predictable, and honestly, kind of boring. Then came Married with Children, and it blew up everything people thought they knew about family sitcoms. This show didn't care about being nice or teaching lessons. Instead, it gave us the Bundy family, possibly the most dysfunctional family ever put on television. Al Bundy wasn't a caring dad. He was a bitter shoe salesman who hated his job, couldn't stand his wife, and spent most of his time complaining about how terrible his life had become. His wife, Peg, wasn't a loving housewife either. She never cooked, never cleaned, and spent all day watching TV while eating bonbons. Their kids, Kelly and Bud, were selfish, lazy, and cared only about themselves. And you know what? People absolutely loved it. Finally, here was a TV family that felt real in all the worst ways. They fought constantly, made terrible jokes, and said things that other shows would never dare to say. The Bundys were broke, miserable, and completely honest about it. For millions of Americans, this felt more like real life than all those perfect TV families combined. But being real came with a price. From the very first episode, Married with Children was surrounded by controversy. Religious groups hated it. Critics called it disgusting. Politicians said it was ruining American values. And the network censors? They were constantly watching, constantly worried about what the show might do next. The truth is, every single week, the writers of Married with Children played a dangerous game. They would write jokes and storylines that pushed right up to the line of what was acceptable on television. Sometimes they crossed that line, and the censors would make them change things. But mostly, they got away with it because the show was making tons of money and getting huge ratings. However, there was always one unspoken rule hanging over everything. The show could make dirty jokes and be outrageous, but if they went too far into territory that made people truly uncomfortable, the network would shut them down completely. And that's exactly what happened with the episode called I'll See You in Court. This episode was created during the show's third season in 1989. To everyone working on it, this seemed like just another typical Married with Children episode. The cast showed up, learned their lines, and filmed it just like they had done dozens of times before. Nobody thought it would be any different from their usual outrageous episodes. They had no idea they were creating television history. The plot seemed straightforward enough for a Bundy family adventure. Al and Peg decide their marriage has gotten boring, so they go to a cheap motel to try to spice things up. What they don't know is that this sleazy motel has hidden cameras everywhere, and they're secretly recording all their guests during their most private moments. When Al and Peg find out they've been filmed without permission, they decide to sue the motel owners. But this being Married with Children, nothing goes smoothly. When they get to court, they discover they're not the only victims. Their neighbors Steve and Marcy Rhodes went to the same motel and got recorded too. What should have been a serious court case about privacy turns into a circus of embarrassing testimony and crude jokes that make everyone involved look ridiculous. On paper, this might sound like typical Married with Children material. The show had always made jokes about Al and Peg's terrible marriage and their complete lack of romance. They had talked about private things before. So why was this episode different? Why did it scare the network so badly? The answer has everything to do with timing and the world outside the TV studio. By 1989, Married with Children had already made some powerful enemies. The biggest enemy was a woman named Terry Ricalta, a mother from Michigan who accidentally saw an episode while her kids were in the room. She was so offended by what she saw that she started a massive campaign to get the show canceled. Ricalta didn't just write angry letters. She organized boycotts. She contacted every major company that advertised during Married with Children and demanded they stop supporting the show. And it worked. Major companies like Kellogg's and Coca-Cola actually pulled their ads from the show because of her pressure campaign. Suddenly, Married with Children wasn't just controversial entertainment anymore. It was a business problem. Fox was still a very new TV network at this time. Unlike ABC, NBC, and CBS, which had been around forever, Fox was fighting to prove itself. They needed to be edgy and different to get attention, but they also needed advertisers to pay the bills. When major companies started pulling their money because of one Angry Moms campaign, Fox executives began to panic. Right in the middle of this advertising crisis, along comes I'll See You in Court, which plot about people being secretly filmed during intimate moments. The timing couldn't have been worse. Here was an episode that dealt with voyeurism, privacy violations, and sexual exploitation, exactly the kind of subject matter that was making advertisers nervous. But there was something deeper that made this episode truly dangerous. In 1989, the idea of being secretly recorded during private moments wasn't just a silly TV plot. It was a real fear that many people had. This was long before smartphones and social media. But hidden cameras and unauthorized recordings were real things that happened to real people. The episode hit too close to home for comfort. What made it even worse was how the show handled the subject. Instead of treating the violation of privacy as a serious crime, I'll See You in Court turned it into a comedy. The victims became the butt of the jokes. Their humiliation became entertainment. And for network executives who were already dealing with angry parents and fleeing advertisers, this felt like a bomb waiting to explode. So they made a decision that nobody announced publicly. They simply pulled the episode from the schedule. No press release, no explanation, no apology. I'll See You in Court was finished, ready to air, and then it just vanished. For years, most people didn't even know it existed. The cast and crew were completely confused by what happened. Ed O'Neill, who played Al Bundy, later said he never understood why this particular episode got censored when they had done so many other outrageous things. After all, he had spent 3 seasons making jokes about every inappropriate topic imaginable. Why was this one different? Katie Sagal, who played Peg, thought the script was funny and perfectly in character for the show. From her perspective, the idea of Al and Peg accidentally becoming stars of an unauthorized adult video was absurd and ridiculous, which is exactly what Married with Children was supposed to be. She didn't see why this episode was any more offensive than the dozens of others they had already aired. The writers were equally baffled. Michael Moy, one of the show's creators, later revealed that the script had gone through all the normal approval processes without any red flags. It was only after Terry Ricalta's boycott campaign gained momentum that Fox started second-guessing everything. Suddenly, every script was being examined with a magnifying glass, and I'll See You in Court became a casualty of the network's fear. For more than a decade, the episode became the stuff of legend among Married with Children fans. Some people claimed they had seen it air late at night in certain cities. Others insisted it had been broadcast in Canada or overseas. But these stories were never confirmed, and most fans began to believe the episode had been destroyed completely. The truth was stranger than any of the rumors. I'll See You in Court hadn't been destroyed at all. It was sitting in a vault somewhere, complete and ready to air, but Fox had simply decided to pretend it didn't exist. It wasn't included in reruns, it wasn't put on home video releases, and it wasn't part of any syndication packages sold to other networks. Then, in 2002, something unexpected happened. FX, a cable channel that had bought the rights to show old Married with Children episodes, quietly slipped I'll See You in Court into their regular rotation. Without any fanfare or special announcement, the banned episode suddenly appeared on television screens across America. Fans couldn't believe what they were seeing. For 13 years, this episode had been nothing but rumors and whispers. Now, suddenly, there it was in all its controversial glory. Internet message boards exploded with excitement. People were recording it, sharing clips, and finally getting to see what all the fuss had been about. The reaction was mixed. Some fans thought the episode was everything they had hoped it would be, a perfect example of Married with Children at its most outrageous. Others found it uncomfortable to watch, especially the parts that made light of people being violated in their most private moments. But everyone agreed on one thing. It was significant. This episode represented a moment in television history when networks were willing to bury content not because it was obscene, but because it made people think about uncomfortable truths. FX only aired the episode a few times before it disappeared again, this time due to programming changes rather than censorship. But those few airings were enough to prove that the episode still existed and still had the power to get people talking. The demand for it to be officially released grew stronger than ever. For years, fans petitioned Sony Pictures Television, which owned the rights to the show, to include I'll See You in Court in official DVD collections. Entertainment writers began including it in articles about lost television episodes. Cast members were constantly asked about it in interviews. The episode had become more than just a banned piece of television. It had become a symbol of censorship and the power that networks had over creative content. Sony executives found themselves in a difficult position. They knew there was demand for the episode, but they also knew it came with risks. Would they need to include warning labels? Would international broadcasters refuse to air it? Would it generate bad publicity for the company? These discussions went on for years without any resolution. But then something changed in the world of television that made all those concerns seem outdated. Streaming services like Netflix, Hulu, and Amazon Prime began producing content that made I'll See You in Court look tame by comparison. Shows like Euphoria, The Boys, and countless others featured graphic violence, explicit sexual content, and storylines about surveillance and privacy that were far more intense than anything Married with Children had ever attempted. More importantly, audiences had changed too. Modern viewers were more sophisticated about media, more aware of issues like consent and privacy, and more interested in understanding how television reflected the culture of different time periods. What had once seemed too shocking for television was now viewed as an interesting historical artifact. The themes of I'll See You in Court had also become more relevant than ever. In our current world of smartphones, social media, and constant surveillance, the idea of being secretly recorded doesn't seem far-fetched at all. Stories about revenge porn, leaked private photos, and unauthorized intimate recordings fill the news regularly. The episode that once seemed like an outrageous comedy now felt almost prophetic. Sony finally realized they had been sitting on a piece of television history that deserved to be seen. In 2025, they announced plans to release I'll See You in Court as part of a special collection called Too Hot for Prime Time, featuring banned and censored episodes from various classic shows. But this wouldn't just be a simple re-release. The episode would be remastered in high definition, with new commentary from surviving cast members and producers explaining the controversy surrounding it. The timing couldn't be better. Modern audiences are fascinated by lost media and censored content. YouTube channels, podcasts, and entire websites are dedicated to uncovering suppressed films, banned episodes, and deleted scenes from popular shows. There's never been a bigger appetite for the content we weren't allowed to see. For Sony, releasing I'll See You in Court isn't just about nostalgia or satisfying curious fans. It's about joining a larger conversation about censorship, artistic freedom, and how our understanding of appropriate content has evolved over the decades. The episode that once seemed too dangerous for television now serves as a fascinating time capsule of both 1980s attitudes and the fears that shaped early broadcast television. The business side makes sense too. Unlike broadcast television, streaming platforms don't have to worry about angry advertisers or organized boycott campaigns. Content can be released directly to consumers who choose to watch it, with appropriate warnings and context provided. What once would have caused a ratings disaster can now be released with a click of a button. But why does this 35-year-old episode still matter today? On the surface, I'll See You in Court might seem like just another raunchy sitcom episode full of outdated jokes. But if you look deeper, you'll find themes that are more relevant now than they were in 1989. At its heart, this episode is about consent, privacy, and what happens when those things are violated. The Bundys are filmed during an intimate moment, without their knowledge. The footage is stored and potentially distributed without their permission. When they try to seek justice, they're met with mockery and a legal system that seems more interested in entertainment than protection. Does that sound familiar? It should, because it's the exact pattern we see in modern privacy scandals. From leaked celebrity photos to revenge porn to unauthorized intimate recordings, the last decade has shown us how easily private moments can become public humiliation. Victims are often blamed, laughed at, or told they should have known better. Real trauma gets turned into internet memes and gossip. "I'll see you in court" may have tried to make these violations funny, but the discomfort was always there underneath. Watching Al and Peg, characters famous for their lack of intimacy, suddenly become victims of voyeurism highlighted just how vulnerable anyone can be when their privacy is invaded. The humor didn't erase the violation, it exposed it. That's exactly why network executives were so terrified of this episode. It wasn't just dirty, it was dangerous because it revealed uncomfortable truths. Not through a serious drama or documentary, but through the kind of sharp comedy that hits you in the gut when it's working at its best. It mocked a justice system that fails to protect victims. It satirized the way intimate moments can become public spectacle. Most importantly, it showed how easily people can be humiliated when those in power treat their trauma as entertainment. Today, we're finally ready to have that conversation. With smartphones, social media, and constant connectivity, almost everyone has experienced some form of privacy violation or knows someone who has. The Bundys might not have imagined TikTok or Instagram, but their story asks a question that's more important than ever. What happens when even the most powerless people in society are exploited and nobody cares? "I'll see you in court" also serves as a powerful reminder about the dangers of censorship. The networks didn't ban this episode because it was obscene or harmful. They banned it because they were afraid of public backlash. They were more concerned about protecting their business interests than protecting artistic expression or encouraging important conversations. In the 1980s, it was relatively easy to bury uncomfortable stories. A network could simply decide not to air something, and most people would never know existed. Today, that kind of censorship is much harder to maintain. Social media, file sharing, and global connectivity make it almost impossible to permanently suppress content. But the temptation to silence uncomfortable voices is still there, and "I'll see you in court" reminds us why we should resist it. The episode that was once too shocking for television now feels like essential viewing for understanding how far we've come and how far we still need to go. It's a comedy that accidentally became a time capsule, a banned episode that became more important because it was banned, and a piece of television history that's finally getting the attention it deserves. When you watch "I'll See You in Court" today, you're not just seeing a lost episode of a popular sitcom. You're witnessing a moment when television tried to grapple with issues that society wasn't ready to face. You're seeing how censorship works and why it's dangerous. And you're getting a preview of conversations about privacy, consent, and exploitation that we're still having today. The Bundy family was never meant to be a model for anything. They were crude, selfish, and completely dysfunctional. But in their worst moments, they sometimes revealed truths that more respectable families couldn't or wouldn't address. "I'll See You in Court" was one of those moments, and after 35 years of waiting, we can finally see it for ourselves. So there you have it. The incredible story of the Married with Children episode that was too dangerous for 1989, but perfect for 2025. A single half-hour of television that was banned, buried, and almost forgotten, but refused to stay dead. It survived network censorship, moral panic, and decades of silence to finally find its audience in a world that's ready to hear what it has to say. If you found this story as fascinating as I did, make sure to hit that like button and share this video with anyone who loves television history or banned media. And definitely subscribe to this channel because we're always digging up the stories they try to keep hidden. There are so many more lost episodes, censored scenes, and suppressed shows out there waiting to be discovered. Trust me, you won't want to miss what we uncover next. Until then, keep questioning what you're not allowed to see, because sometimes the most important stories are the ones they try to bury.